Thank you for tuning in to today's Silver Linings Transitions podcast. I am your host, Jamie Shapiro, and I have guest Kelly Rusthoven on today. And this is going to be the first time that I've ever interviewed someone that I don't know very well. So just a little bit of the backstory. I met Kelly. She was the marketing director at a senior community that my company, Silver Linings Transitions, was marketing to and had done some move-ins for. And so we had really only know each other professionally. And we ended up having a LinkedIn Zoom call yesterday because Kelly is shifting her work. I think you were with, am I allowed to say the community's name or should I just skip it? Probably just skip it.
I would skip it.
So she was there for 11 years though, right, Kelly? And made the very bold move, huge, to leave a career like that and go into wealth management, financial planning, insurance with Northwestern Mutual, right?
Yes.
And so we had a business call, and at the end of the conversation, I said, I am like just so impressed with you that you would, take this big leap to go into a completely different field that is, I believe, commission-based. Am I right, Kelly?
Correct.
Yes, and that's a pretty significant thing. I said that's kind of gutsy, and I was telling her that I'm just getting this podcast off the ground, Silver Linings Transitions, and I said it's really about people who are in a transition in their life. I said, and it's a big thing to do. That's a big transition. I said, but I really need like more inspiring stories because what it's about and how I've described the podcast is, when you are crawled up in that ball and you just are like, I don't know how I'm going to break through and get to the other side. I want this podcast to be that inspiring story that you hear, or I want my voice to be that friend that you wish you could talk to. And we were getting off the phone and Kelly said, oh, I have one of those. And when she started to tell me the story, I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that you were divorced. I didn't know that you'd had a traumatic history. So I said, you know what, let's do this. Are you comfortable with just kind of sharing this with me, and that the listeners can hear your story as I hear your story? And she said, absolutely. And I said, great. It's an opportunity for you to play, to tell us more about what you're doing, as a financial planner as well, but also to inspire people who hear your story. So Kelly, do you want to tell me more?
Oh goodness. So what exactly do you want to know? And I thank you for the nice introduction. Yes. So 11 and a half years in an established career, great company that I was working with. And then I made the decision at the beginning of the year, about January, that I wanted to continue to improve on myself and continue to grow, and helping seniors with retirement was a passion. And so I was like, I should be able to help more people with this. And that was part of our conversation, yesterday. I think what prompted Jamie and I really talking is I said, you just got to keep on pushing. You got to fight. You got to work for what you want to do. And so, it did take some time for my transition to this position to happen. And of course, it was right during the midst of COVID. So it's been also a learning curve for me. I did all of my trainings, met all of my teammates virtually. I've been into the office once in my 3 months with the company. So it's been fun. So Jamie, did you just want to ask me some questions about the past, or you just want me to kind of just go?
You to go, and as you talk, I'm going to ask you a question as if we were having a regular conversation. So like I'm meeting you for the first time and it's a date. Tell me about yourself, Kelly.
Well, the fun thing is I go on dates, you let the crazy out slowly. No,
That's good. That's good. That's what I hold. My friend said to me, because I'm also single. She said, you're great, Jamie. You just need to be Jamie light. Just take it down a notch.
Right. So I'll just kind of get it out all in a nutshell. So yes, I've been through some very traumatic things in my life, whether it was, and things I couldn't control and things I shouldn't have ever had to have been subjected to. I was molested before I was 10 years old by a neighbor. And didn't tell anybody in my family about that until I was about 23. And then that was a lot, because that's your comfort zone. And for somebody to be right around, and they were friends with my siblings. I am the youngest of three. So it's about 5 years different between my sister and I. And so I always struggled to be one of the boys, because my brother was a little bit closer in age to me. And you can see there's actually a picture of my family back there. We do a memorial golf tournament for my grandfather, who passed away a couple years ago. Or, goodness, not even a couple. How time flies, about 5 or 6 years ago. Excuse me. And if I talk too fast, let me know.
You're good. And I mean, thank you for sharing that so openly. I think that that's one of the problems in our society, is that people as victims have something happen to them, and then they have to carry the shame, and it's not their shame to carry. So, you know, I would also love to hear how you're able to talk about that and how you got through it, because that's certainly a huge thing. And I don't want to have the whole conversation be about that, but I don't want to skip over it either.
Yeah, but so when I said I think I finally was able to talk about it when I was about 23. So I went through a different traumatic situation with an ex-boyfriend that was abusive, both verbally and physically. And when we talk about crawling into the ball and how to get out of it, you know, if that ball is locked in a closet being told you're not pretty enough to be on somebody's arm, you know, that can be very hurtful. And about 2 years later, that person took vengeance on me again, unexpectedly. And I shut down. And I met my ex-husband around that point in time, and bless his heart, wonderful man. It just didn't work out between us. But I fought those challenges. And how can I talk about it now? Is because when I started my career, I had somebody that was going through something, and it was just breaking her. And it was just something I took benefit by talking about mine and trying to help her. And ever since I kind of had that awe-inspiring moment, I don't try to make other people happy. I don't try to say, what are my, ostentatious goals out there in the world? I go, would little 7-year-old Kelly be proud of what you've accomplished today? Continue to push, right? Because we all wanted to grow up to be some type of maybe Disney princess or some type of warrior. And I didn't want to do something that made that person upset. And I think what's painful is girls and women that just hold this, and then they resort to, chemicals, drugs, alcoholism, just continuing to feel defeated and not wanting to push. Mm-hmm. And it's hard. Mm-hmm. But I'm my biggest support staff. Got to be proud of yourself.
I love that you talked about little Kelly. I had some childhood stuff as well. And actually, I'm just recently realizing in all of my failed relationships that I'm the common denominator in all of that. And I was repeating some patterns, and also had been abused as a child. And now I'm really trying to take care, even though I thought that I had addressed it. I recognize, what you do is you repeat the patterns that you're comfortable with. And it's very possible that maybe when you were married to this wonderful person, you couldn't receive it because you didn't think you were worthy. I'm really a closet therapist. This is really what I like. I can tell everybody was wrong with them, but it was just recently that I actually hired a dating coach, surprisingly, because I have no problem getting dates. I could have a date every day of the week if I wanted to have a date, but I can't sustain a relationship. And then I started looking at my relationships. I looked at my marriage, and then my stepfather, I get emotional when I talk about it. He passed away in February, and thank God for that man. He just came in and he loved me. And he wiped away some things that had happened in my life. And my father was not abusive. It was his wife. And there was some neglect going on. But my stepfather just came in and he loved me. And so having him pass really opened up Pandora's box for me, because I started to have to really look at my childhood. Mm-hmm. And he was always that, I'm tearing up. He was always that strength for me. He was that person that I could rely on and go to, and also my grandparents who have passed also. So I love hearing other people, and I love when people reference that little child. I can't believe I'm totally, but it's
let it out, girl. It was going to be you or me, so just embrace it.
Yeah, so thank you. Okay, so what I love to tell my children, and I like the podcast to say, is that in life, we can survive a situation or we can thrive from that situation. And we don't really have a choice. If something has happened to us, all we can do is let it affect how we move forward. And I definitely am a living proof that if you don't deal with something, it is just going to come back. It's just going to keep coming back until it's dealt with. So what would you tell somebody who is in that situation?
There is nothing in life that you can control other than how you respond. And the biggest strength is knowing how to handle emotions, but embracing them even when you do have them, but still even controlling those types of responses. And just being open enough to know you're never the only one. I mean, just random conversations between you and I, it pops out that, we both have things in common, but we've known each other now for about 3 to 4 years, working relationship, and we've never even talked about it. I mean,
so now my eye is just tearing because I put sunscreen on. I'm going kayaking this afternoon.
Oh no!
I know. So we're gonna keep going because it's such a good interview. But I'm gonna pause it right now. We're gonna go to commercial and come back, and
Okay.
you just got to go with it. I mean, you can just have a sense of humor and be vulnerable, and that's where we're at. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna go pause this interview, and we're gonna pick up, and I'm gonna get this eye under control. Pause.
Okay.
So we're back with Kelly Rusthoven, and have gotten my eye under control. And I don't remember where we were because I was just sort of fighting the tears as I was not, and at that point it wasn't because I was crying, it was because the sunscreen was burning my eyes. So do you want to kind of take us back to where you were when we were talking? I remember, yeah, you were talking about sort of like you can't adjust the wind, but you can adjust your sail kind of thing.
Yeah, right. You have to, exactly what you just said, when you got sunscreen in your eye. It can either be something you roll with, or it can be something that it just, it cripples, and you don't know how to respond to it. Life, you gotta giggle through some things, and you have to have fun, and then control what you can and don't stress. But the next thing is be proud of yourself every day. And that's something like, I've been very fortunate with my new company. They also put, with Northwestern, great core values, wonderful people to work with, wonderful team members. But one of the first things they do is help us write a design statement. And you read it 2 or 3 times a day, and you write it as 6 months away from now, looking back at what you've accomplished. So right now, mine's talking about you were so well in your career, you blew up beyond what you even anticipated. Isn't it nice that you've been able to affect all these people's lives? And there it says right there directly, I'm a rock star. And so I read it every morning, and then I got a giggle. Then I put my music on and I just rock out as I'm getting ready, because it's the best way to start the day. And I also vow, never check your emails until you've been up for 2 hours.
Oh, that's a good one.
Because you don't want to wake up and instantly look at a problem that somebody's put in front of you. You want to wake up, clean slate, prep for the day.
Right. Good. Well, you know what? Interesting. I don't know where you fall in the whole manifesting thing and if you believe in it or not. I mean, I feel like at least in California, we can talk about it pretty openly. And I used to think it was so ridiculous to write something down or say it out loud. I am blah, 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 blah. I am blah, blah, blah. And I learned the difference between because that's exactly what they have you doing is manifesting. The difference is if you don't believe it when you say it, there's no point in saying it. But if you really believe it, I mean, I'm really been learning a lot about the power of our subconscious. Mm-hmm. And so I love that your company does it. There were a few other things that you were telling me when I asked. So we're putting together a list. Silver Linings Transitions is, while we have always focused on senior move management and then moves in divorce as well as a result of my experience, we help divorcing people move. But with COVID being what it is and senior communities being so impacted, I was explaining to you, we're not doing senior moves anymore. Not that we don't want to, they just are few and far between. So we are pivoting or finding the silver lining in this situation. And we are going to be doing more aging in place for seniors so that we can go into their homes and help them with all of the resources that they need, which is going to include bringing in a contractor who is, CAPS certified, which is certified aging in place, medication management. And one of the things that I also mentioned is, people need to financially plan for aging and what that looks like. And so I said to you, we're putting together a list of resources. What's your key differentiator? What makes you different from all the other financial planners out there? So I would love for you to share that too.
Oh, right. Well, what makes it kind of different is I'm not selling you anything. I'm simply asking you about your goals, what somebody wants to accomplish, and taking it over different pillars on how to do that. Really, there's 3 key things that we look at, and that's going to be planning for risks, right? So whether it's car accidents, whether it's disability, whether it's an uneventful passing or unplanned passing. So we do that through various types of insurances. And then we do wealth accumulation. And the first thing that we always want to have on top of people's minds are taxes. Is it tax deferred, or are you going to have to pay taxes on it right now? The difference, people think about Roth IRAs and people think about 401ks, and those are all wonderful vehicles to accumulate wealth, but that shouldn't be a sole thing. There's so many different components to it. And then the other one would just simply be wealth preservation. So if somebody is aging in place, are they still going to have the financial means to do that? Because the idea of wanting to stay in your home, and that's the biggest thing that terrifies me with seniors. Yeah, you can stay in your home, but you got to retrofit it to fit your lifestyle. If you don't have a bedroom downstairs with a full bath, you should be thinking about where your next home will be. It doesn't have to be a home or a wonderful community out there, but it needs to be something that can meet the lifestyle, because you will have a longer life at that point if you're in a situation that's accommodating. And quite simply, with what I do right now, is really help people just accomplish what they want to do. Right? And we do complementary analysis for anyone that wants to just reach out and see. And so I'm not going to go into too many details because they are completely person specific. And but no, it's been a wonderful avenue. And just even with the brief time I've been there, helping a lot of people, and it's been a lot of fun. And I've gotten to reconnect with wonderful people like Jamie and talk about these types of things and just see how we can continue to help.
That's great. And we're going to have your contact information in the show notes. And then when we release the podcast, it'll be something that we can both share. And I think one of the benefits that you and I have in this conversation, and I think one of the things that I love so much, is that we've had the benefit of being young. Well, you're younger than I am. I just turned 50, but working with seniors and being able to see them when they're sort of approaching the end. And we don't even like to say that in our society. We want to pretend that aging doesn't happen, that death doesn't happen. And that isn't the case. And I think one of the things that I've learned for people that are successful about it is to also be curious about the process. And, rather than fearful, because fear doesn't do any of us any good. I actually, I don't know if you can see this, but I got this tattoo. It says "Be Love." I got it last April. And it's something I'm doing with my daughters, because I always tell them to, we can approach something from fear, or we can approach something with love, and love just is just a better way to approach it. So, okay. So now that we have the benefit of hindsight, what is something that you've learned about living and life and aging that you're grateful that you learned because you worked with seniors?
That's a really loaded question. But it's a great question, because so many people have denial about how they feel, right? And when I used to give large group presentations, I would have maybe 150 to 200 attendees at these presentations. And I would ask them, how many of you are here just because simply you want to know what every other crazy person is out there, because you'll never move into a community, or you're never going to need help, and you're never going to need skilled nursing, and you're going to live in your house for the rest of your life? And the entire room would laugh. because that is what they're thinking. They're never going to need it. And then and so continuing that type of presentation, they're always like 5 years down the line, 5 years down the line. And I go, well, I know I'm personally invincible, so I'm assuming you are as well. But how many of your friends are looking that much older? Did you see Sally Mae the other day? And she just looks something like she needs to start thinking about transitioning, but you've been Sally Mae's best friend for the last 50 years, right? So there's a recognition of self and setting, like I personally know, and I've been an advocate for my family, that you will live longer and happier if you prepare for it, understand it's going to happen, because there's only one known in this world. We're either going to get older or we're not going to exist.
That's right. That's right. It beats the alternative. It really does. My daughter always had a fear of aging. And I remember we were walking into Panera one day. She was about 3 years old. And I had my middle daughter at the time was 1, and I had her on my hip. And we're going into Panera, and there was an older couple, and they were coming out of Panera. We were walking in, and they held the door open for us. And my daughter sort of was like skittish and didn't want to be around them. I said, and we walked in, I said, what was the problem? She said something. She said something, I don't like old people, or something like that. I don't remember what it was. And I said, well, you're going to be old one day. And she puts her arm up like this, and she goes, I'm going to cancel being old. And I'm like, well, it's a wonderful option if it meant that you got to live and you didn't have to grow old, and maybe plastic surgery will help, but I don't want to see you die too early. But it was just funny from a 3-year-old's perspective. Any other parting words or any advice you want to give? Like I said, the theme of the podcast is silver linings and finding yours. And I would love to hear what your silver lining has been in the coronavirus quarantine, and maybe just, something else you can leave our listeners with that will inspire them.
Oh, I didn't know you were going to ask that question. So silver lining is, during the coronavirus, it's been difficult. I live by myself. And then making a transition and not meeting any of my team members. Excuse me. And so I joked with my aunt and uncle, who live just up the street, but I hadn't seen since February, since they self-quarantined because they've got some medical underlying that they were concerned about. Everybody's fine. But I was getting ready where the walls were talking to me, because no interaction with anyone, just moved, so I don't even really know my neighbors. I broke my leg about 2 years ago, and I really just kind of shut down in the way of physical activities. So what has this caused me to do? Take a step back and go, you know what, just start going out and walking again. Start going out and having fun. So I've been really investing more time in myself and my mental by getting into more of a physical routine. And I think if I would not have made that leap and coronavirus didn't set in, I probably would have just sat there and been an extreme workaholic. Let's do this, probably being in the office for like 14 hours a day. But productivity comes from self-gratification, not because you're having to do something. 2 books I've always read. So for the divorced person that has habitual routines, and they recognize, like, you hired a dating coach, that probably is something in my wheelhouse, because dating is terrifying, and I'd much rather set the bar a little bit lower for who I'm talking to, so I don't have to really worry about it.
Then we have to talk, girlfriend.
Yeah. But 2 books. So for the female side of me, as trying to figure out myself in dating, I've read the book Codependent No More.
Oh, okay. So we share that in common as well. I go to Al-Anon.
Okay.
Which is codependency. And that's what I love. The 12, in fact, I don't know if you've heard this, but they've talked a lot about how people who work 12 steps are doing so much better in this, because this has been a theme throughout our interview, that you have no control over life. You really don't. And so you just have to sort of learn to let go. And then, okay, so that's Codependent No More. And
Codependent No More. And then actually, so there's 2 books. There's a real quick read. It's The 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey.
Oh.
And that's about you know, you help other people and you take on tasks because you're so much more efficient and you can do it. But then you realize everyone else is having wonderful vacations, going out and partying, and you're working 7 days a week and you're not even getting a break because you've taken their problems and their responsibilities and made them your own.
That's a very codependent thing to do as well.
And then this is the last one. Grit.
Nice. Okay, so I have a recommendation for you. One of my absolute favorites was You Are a Badass by Jen Sincero. It sort of combines all self-help into one, and I absolutely love it. I'm going to also give you a little piece of advice that I got from my dating coach.
Okay.
It's funny because, so, you know, as you know, I own my own business. I'm the mom of 3 girls, and I had been dating very much the way I do everything else, which is I don't have the time for this. You know, come on, like, let's get to it. I remember I would like send out these really abrupt messages, like, this is what I'm looking for. If this is what you want, you know, message me back. Otherwise, unmatch me. And the reality is, I mean, I was doing it for 2 reasons. One of the reasons that I was doing it was I felt tremendous guilt when I was not working. Because I feel like and you now starting a business, as a business owner, you know, and I have employees, that if I'm not producing, then all of these other people are relying on me and I'm letting them down. And I'm also a little, I don't know if you've learned your Enneagram yet, but that's a whole other conversation. And I think the other reason that I'm realizing, and why I ended up going to the dating coach, was that I felt like if I put it all out there for somebody, it's sort of like, okay, if you're going to reject me now, because I don't want to get hurt.
Yeah.
And so that's where the Jamie Light comes in. It's like, oof, I can't be that. So I'm sharing this with you because one of the things she said to me is, when you start focusing more on your life and feeling less guilty about the time that you're not working, you're going to be more productive. And she goes, and your business is going to increase. And I was like, oh. So there's something to that. I had cancer 15 years ago. Thank God it was thyroid cancer, but I had to wait for my diagnosis. They found stuff in my lungs, which turned out to not be cancer, but I had to go through scans, and I had that experience. And that is actually why I named the company Silver Linings Transitions, because if I hadn't gone through that experience, I would never have looked at my life. And so it's really important that I'm giving you this advice, and to our listeners, that you not feel guilty for self-care, and whatever self-care looks like, whether it's online dating and flirting and totally wasting your time, or binge watching television, or going for walks. If you don't take care of you, what's it all for?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So absolutely important key takeaway there.
Yeah. Well, it was, I mean, if there's anything else you feel like you want to say before I end the conversation, I want to.
No, because I'd love to be back, and then you can just pry and pick me more.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I'm excited. Like I said, we'll be launching all of the first 10 episodes at one time. And I'm excited to see where it goes to. I'm sort of, as I shared with you in the beginning, I have 2 philosophies. One is perfect is the enemy of done. And so I'm just going to get it out there. And then the other is, from my Allen eyes, is just kind of like following the path as it unfolds and letting it be what it's going to be. So I really appreciate that you were so willing to just talk about everything openly and kind of go with me. You didn't give me any questions to prepare. And I learned about you the way that our listeners did. So happy to follow up with you about the dating and see where that is too, because I think that's an important part of it.
It is. And so it's going to be fun and exciting. And now that I haven't really done it in 3 years, that's how long I was married. So I need to do something. I have not dated since I was 21 years old.
Oh my gosh. I have dated too much. So we need to go out and have fun.
There you go.
All right.
All righty. Well, you have a great day. And thank you.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.